Hey guys, and welcome to another Factorio Mod Spotlight. I'm Exterminator, and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be going over Resource Spawner Overhaul, or RSO, as most people know it. And this is a mod that is extremely popular. I would actually be a bit surprised if you didn't know it unless you're very new to the game. But what this does, as you might have guessed based on the name, is it overhauls the resource spawning in Factorio and changes it up. And you may be surprised, and I'm not really sure why I haven't done a spotlight of this before. I guess because I felt like it didn't really need a spotlight, but I have been seeing quite a bit of people lately, ask like, how do you tweak it? What does it do? What's the difference? Why would I want it or not want it? So on and so forth. So I figured I'd do a spotlight. And the best way I can think of to show this is I've generated two maps. I've generated one map with RSO not enabled, and I've generated a map with RSO enabled, and you'll see the difference pretty instantly. And then also I'm going to go into the actual settings in game that you can adjust even further if you'd like. So this first map, we're going to load the one with it off first, and just for clarification, what I've done is this is with RSO disabled, and I've used just to show you, I've used just the Rail World preset. I just hit Rail World and generate, and this is the base game. Large resource patches spread far apart to encourage train systems. The biter part, well, it kind of matters, but not really. So essentially, this is the vanilla's version of a rail world, which personally I think is not accurate at all. Unless by rail world they mean rails absolutely everywhere, because you don't actually need long rail systems. Because if I load this game up, I've revealed out 2,000 tiles in every direction. And right off the bat, even on the mini-map, you'll notice this. So look at the size of these patches. I mean, they're not super high richness, but this is the vanilla's version of RSO, or not RSO, of Railworld. Okay, these are not what I would consider far apart patches. A lot of, almost none of these need trains, in my mind, at least. So this is kind of vanilla. If this is what you want, then RSO is probably not for you, to be completely honest. If this is the type of resources you want, nothing wrong with that. For my play style, I don't particularly want this, but if you do, then you're good to go with vanilla stuff, and that's great. But if you want more spread out resources and to actually really encourage larger train systems, I'm just kind of mousing over here to show stuff, 30 million. I mean, you can see how close together these actually are here. I know the biters cover up some of them, but you can see this, right? So if you want to do this, then, fantastic. Then go for this. But what RSO does is it actually spreads them out a lot more than vanilla. So if we go into our one where I've loaded RSO, and all I've done for this is I've used the same exact map. I've taken the map exchange string, so it's a consistent test. I've taken the exchange string, and I've just generated a new map with the same exchange string and RSO on. And I've revealed it out the same distance. And you'll notice right off the bat a difference. Now, these are, in my mind, still a little bit close together, but this is where you can get into the settings I'll show in a second and tweak this. But already, you can see these are a lot more spread out, they are pretty high richness as you go out still, but that's kind of what it's supposed to do. But I mean, you can see the difference. So this is kind of what RSO does, right? It spreads them out more, and you'll also notice a huge difference in the enemies. The biter bases are far, far smaller and far less frequent, I guess you could say. And I've noticed my game speed is at 5 because I was generating out the map. I should lower that. But anyway, so if you want this type of thing, then just the default RSO settings will be good for you, right? If you want kind of lower biters and stuff, and just the default RSO settings with a rail world preset, because that's what I've done here, then this is still pretty good. I mean, this is, in my mind, a lot better than the vanilla version. Okay, except for right around spawn here, a lot of copper. But if we go out of this now, and we go into our options, and we go into new game, couple notes here. First off, when you have RSO, tweaking these settings does make a difference, right? So I chose the rail world preset, but if you want more enemies, for example, you could turn them up here and it would make a bit of a difference. Same with the resources. RSO does take these into account, which is really nice. But if you want to go even further than that, if you go into mod settings here, here's your first option. Use vanilla biter generation. If you want biters to be generated like you saw on the first map, but have your resources be RSO essentially, then this is what you would want to check, because this is going to use vanilla biter generation. And when you go into map, you're going to want to uncheck use RSO biter generation. And this is where you can get really kind of into the fine details of RSO, right? So if you want your resources, I'm going to try to just briefly do just a brief summary of the main ones here. If you want your resources more spread apart than what I showed, because this is all default settings, right, for RSO. If you want your resources setting spread out more than I showed, you want to increase this number, size of generation region, and they do add very nice tooltips here, so you can read those. A defined size of region used for resource generation. It's defined in chunks. Bigger values will make resources more sparse. So essentially, it makes, it spreads them out more. So if you want them really far apart, you make this number bigger. If you want them less far apart, you make it smaller, right? Starting richness multiplier. Richness of all starting resources will be multiplied by this value. So this is just for starting area, I believe. Okay, so then resource chance. This is essentially just, as you would guess, how often it spawns. So chance to spawn resource per region, and this is our region if you remember. So in this case, a region is 7 by 7, I'd imagine, 7 chunks. So this is how much of a chance it has to spawn. It goes from 0.1 to 1. And 1 means always, okay? So this is essentially 50% chance. If you want them really spread out, like less chance, then lower this down. A global richness multiplier. Richness of all resource patches will be multiplied by this much. So if you want your resource richer, you increase this, obviously. Resource patch size multiplier, same as the richness one, but for size, quick note, the very big patches do get cut when generating. We already went over that. And this is just enemy settings down here then. If you want to, not have vanilla biter spawning, but you want to tweak these, they do have this as an option, which is very nice. And distance or richness exponent. This is actually pretty important. Can break game, balance, and or game. I've never had to actually break the game itself, but you do want to be very careful with this. Exponent used to calculate or richness increase with distance from center. So what this means is that if you increase it, your resources are going to be more rich the farther out you go. So from center, it means spawn. So as it is, this is just, whatever richness I was showing in the map where RSO was on. But if you want your resources to say, out at the 2,000 tile border where I generated out to, let's just say, for example, on the other map, they were an average of 10 million, right? If you want them to say be, 20 million by the time you get out that far, you would up this. I don't obviously know exactly the amount for 20 million, but you kind of get my point. That's what this does. That it makes them richer and richer the farther out you go, which is what it does anyway. But this just amplifies that essentially. And then this is for fluid, for oil. Distance size exponent. Also, if you want your patches to just get like really big in size as you go out, then increase this. So this can actually be kind of a nice combination, because for me personally, I prefer my patches to be really large, but not super, super rich as I go out. So, for me, I would maybe decrease this to like 1 here, and then increase this to like 0.4, 0.5 or something, so that I get really big patches, but, they won't last forever because they're not like 40 million richness or whatever. Use donut shapes. Enable the setting will add donut as possible shape type for ore patches. It will make ore patch layouts more varied. So kind of just some variation. You can remove trees if you'd like. Like when you place resources, it will get rid of the trees. May not be 100% effective. Use Angel's Infinite Ores in the starting area if you're using Angel's Ores. And reveal spawned resources. When enabled, each generator field will be revealed on the map for all forces to prevent partially revealed ore on minimap. So there you go, guys. That's RSO. There's a lot you can do with it. Pretty much this is all the settings you'd want. You can go into the actual config file in the mod folder, and there's a couple more you can play with, but I would be very careful with that, because I have completely messed up maps, essentially, like our 015 playthrough. that has now ended. You know how scarce the resources were there. I played with it a little too much, the config file. So you'll probably want to stick to these, but there's so much customization you can do with just these settings. And you know, if you're not really happy with the vanilla ore spawning, or resource spawning rather, then I would highly suggest checking this out. It, in my opinion, does a far better job than the vanilla system. But anyway, link in the description as always, guys, to check it out. I know it was a bit longer, but there was quite a bit to go over, and I did want to, you know, give you guys a good understanding of what everything does here and what you can do with this mod. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. You know, what you think. I'd like to hear what you think in terms of vanilla generation or RSO generation, or maybe like good configurations you found for it would be cool, because I'm still playing around with good configurations for it, and I've spent hours and hours doing it. But anyway, until next time, I look forward to seeing you all. Do take care, and if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. I will catch you guys later.